AI in the enterprise, right? We've talked about how amazing AI is. We've all used it probably in our personal lives, seen how much cool things you can do with it and how productive you can be. But as everyone in this room knows, getting that into the enterprise is a different discussion, right? Some of those things around security, compliance, reliability, accuracy, like really actually matter in the enterprise. Trust, another great one. So we are very fortunate today to have someone who's uniquely positioned to talk to us about this. Tamar has an amazing career, starting with Amazon A9 and Google on the consumer side, where she was in Google Search, which is arguably where a lot of this was born. Then worked for Slack, which just happened to become the fastest growing enterprise company ever, and really brought a lot of that consumer DNA into the enterprise. And now where she's at Glean running product, which is really at the forefront of bringing AI into the enterprise. So we're very fortunate to have her here. Please welcome Tamar to the stage.
Thank you so much, Mark. Great to be here. Just so that I have a grounding on who the audience is, how many people have heard of Glean? Ooh, that's pretty good. How many people have used Glean? Okay, not as good, but still not zero. So I'm going to talk about a glimpse into the future of enterprise AI, how we think about it. I'm also going to touch on a couple of things that the panel talked about. Wasn't that an amazing panel? Thank you so much for the insights, and a lot of that is how we think about what we're doing at Glean. So you all know we've gone through a lot of technology shifts over the last couple of decades. Some of us have been around for many of them. This one is different. This one, we really believe it's coming faster. All of you who are at large companies, you're adopting much faster than in the past. It's easier to adopt AI in some ways than it was to re-implement your entire stack on the cloud. But it's really interesting how it's growing. And one of the things that how we think about AI and how do you get it into your enterprises, you have to to be an AI-centric company, you have to have AI-centric employees. So in the panel, you all talked about how people need to use it, and you talked about how sometimes people are a little afraid of it. And so first you have to get over that hump of people being scared of AI, and then trying it, and then finding the value. So we think a lot about that. How do we get employees to use AI, and then for your company to be more AI-centric? We believe that everyone will have a personal assistant ultimately. In fact, you'll have many. And many of you probably have your own personal assistant or executive assistant, and this is what our vision is for Glean, to have the equivalent of everyone having many assistants to take care of, as we were saying earlier, a lot of the drudgery in your job. So the way that we look at the evolution of AI and what now everybody is terming agents, AI first started by finding information. As Mark said, Google Search was the first place that was using AI very heavily. You all know that the transformer models came out of Google. Why was Google investing in ML, BERT, all of these language models? It was to improve search. That was absolutely the reason, and those were the days when I was working in Google Search, and you would see these transformations in ML happening at the research team, and then we would pull them in to improve the core search. So first it was about finding information. How do you find things that you couldn't find before, whether it's on the internet or in your organizations? And then you get to summarizing information and utilizing that information. So you want to be able to take all that information, summarize it in a way that you're saving time, and then you also want to be able to create. So with Gen AI, you can take lots of documents, you can summarize them, and then you can create them. And then this new, with agents, you can also take action. So now we can have AI that works for you. So you can find stuff, you can create it, and you can actually automate and operationalize things that you're doing, all with these pieces of technology. And all this together really that's what's going to drive productivity increases. So what do you need in order to do this? There's three things that you really need. You need the reasoning engines. Now the LLMs, especially with 4.0, I don't know if if y'all have been playing with the latest models and the computer use thing that came out from Anthropic last week, like the pace is incredible. And so you need the reasoning, and these models are just really good at reasoning. You need tools, you need to be able to read in information from everything, and you need to take action. And then you have to have the relevant data. That's the key, is the data. And we all know this, and it's hard. So why is this so hard? When I love the, a year later, so a year ago, everyone's like, oh, this is going to be easy. I've got all my enterprise data. I'm just going to put a couple AI engineers, get a API to OpenAI. I'm done. At Glean, we meet with a lot of CIOs who started on that journey and said, this is what I'm going to do. And a year later, they come to us and they're like, this search thing you all are talking about, it's a little bit harder than I thought it was. So the data is hard. And why is it so hard? It's hard because it's everywhere. Like your data is in so many disparate systems. It's private to some people, it's public to other people, it's fast changing, so it's continually, the freshness is changing all the time. You need a context, so if they're like, let's say you're a company of 10,000 people, how many onboarding documents do you think there are in your company? Hundreds? Maybe not thousands, but at least hundreds of onboarding documents. So you have to understand the context of what team are you on and what onboarding document do you want. You need to understand the company lingo. If somebody says QA, is that like the query endpoint server? Is that quantitative easing? Like you need to understand the context of your organization. Is it public knowledge that you're looking for? Is it private in your organization? You have to know what's authoritative. You have again, you launch a feature and maybe people tried to launch it for years before and there are 10 different design docs. How do you know which is the relevant one? This is why it's hard. These are not easy problems to understand the data in your organization. And so what's happening today? As CIOs, every single company is coming to you and saying, we have an AI solution for you. We are going to do all the things that I just said on your CRM, on your messaging data, on your email. And do you all think that works? Well, it's not going to for a long time. So you do get some advantages from this. But what happens when somebody is looking for information? So take this example of somebody new comes on board and they want to learn about an infrastructure project, and they need to go into a lot of different tools to understand. They may be going to people and asking them. They may be going to their Confluence database. They might be going to their code repository, Google Docs, their Microsoft Docs, Slack conversations, or Teams conversations. So they're going and looking at all of these different things. So what we find is in Glean, when you ask a question to Glean, the average query crosses 3 data sources. That's why it's going to be hard to have a solution that is just verticalized to one data source. And because most questions cross, if you want a real answer, you want to look at what was talked about in Slack. What were the documents? What might be in Workday, and who's the expert? So in order to do that, if you go with your AI solution for each individual application, they all are saying, I'm going to connect to everything now. So your CRM is going to connect to all your data. Your document management system is going to connect to all your data. Your messaging app is going to connect to all your data. And this is what you get. So if I go to you and I say, every single SaaS app you have is going to connect to every single other SaaS app you have. Does anybody want to live in that world? It's a difficult one to fathom. So this is where Glean comes in, is that we are a horizontal solution. And we are an unbiased horizontal solution because we don't have a horse in the race in any of these. So we will have equally look at all of your information across all of your SaaS tools. So you can connect your tools once. Very importantly, you can secure them once. You index them once, and you have one understanding across. This is the power that we see in Glean. And obviously, we have to do all of these things well. It's not enough to just do them. But this is how we go across all of your SaaS tools. So this is what Glean looks like. We have two interfaces. We have a search and a chat interface. So this is, you ask a question, it's as if it was a Google search interface, and you get documents that are related to that. Or you can go to the ChatGPT-like interface, and you ask a question and you get a response. We also have an AI overview in our search results. So this is the work assistant that we have that's in production today. So going into the making the enterprise data easy. So the first thing that we do is we look at all of your, connect to all of your SaaS apps. We have over 100 different connectors to your SaaS apps. These are a lot of grit and detail in order to make these connectors work. So they don't work simply. Arvind Jain is a co-founder and CEO, and when I first met him, he joked and he said, I wrote the Google Drive connector. I wrote it in 2 weeks when we first started Glean, and 5 years later, the team is still working on it. Because these things are hard, getting the rate limiting, getting the permissions, dealing with all the new features, what's happening. And so this is a lot of what we do, is we make sure that we adhere to your permissions and your security for all of your content. And then we have, as I said, these two interfaces, the chat and the search. We also build custom assistants. So this is now Glean as a platform. We enabled you to build custom assistants. And this is what we were talking about earlier of how do you enable people to understand the power of what AI can do. Most people don't understand. Most people come, think about how many people who are playing with ChatGPT, and you've seen this, the retention numbers are pretty low. It's because people go and play with it, and then they're not quite sure what to do with it. And then maybe they hear somebody else is trying something, and then they okay, I can try that, but it doesn't stick as much because it's not in your workflow and you don't have that expertise. So this is where Glean apps come in, is we can build, the administrators, the people who are using the product every day can build these apps and deploy them for your organization. So we have two interfaces. You can have a no-code interface to building Glean apps, so an HR team can build a Glean app, and we also have APIs. A lot of our large customers use Glean through our APIs. We have an API to our search index, and we have an API to our chat. So you can put in a query, get a response through the APIs. People use this because they integrate it into their wikis, or they build their own chatbot. So what I was talking about, how IT people want to go and say, we're gonna build something simple with the data of the organization. The data of the organization is the hard part. So if they couldn't do it with just OpenAI and trying to access the data of their organization, they use Glean. And so then they'll say, okay, I met with a CIO of a major bank about a month or two ago. He's like, we took a year, we built this whole thing, but the search is just terrible. It just doesn't work. I'm gonna be so happy if I can rip out everything I spent a year working on and just call Glean. You will make me happy. This is not what we do. This is not our expertise. I want you guys to do it. But they had to some people have to go through the pain of trying it themselves first, or you can talk to your peers and learn from them. But this is what some of the functionality that we have on top. And so how are we a horizontal platform? This is something that's very important to us, is to be an open and horizontal platform. I talked about the connectors we have. We also have an API, an indexing API. So if you have a bespoke data source or one that very few other people use, we have an API, and you can create your own connector. It's pretty straightforward and easy, and you can ingest the information into Glean. We can obviously work with you and help you, but so we have a lot of our large customers have some kind of data that they want to bring into Glean that maybe we didn't support out of the box. But the stuff that comes out of the box is very easy, and this isn't a 6-month deployment. It's just connected and it will work. We work on all the clouds. We have 2 offerings. We can do a SaaS offering where we run it, or we can deploy in your cloud. And then we have the LLM of your choice. So you can use our key for the LLM if you want, or you can use your key so you can burn down your commits that you may or may not have. Or if you have a preference for one LLM over another, we validate the models and make sure that they work with Glean in the use cases that you're likely to use for Glean. So we will validate the models, and we have a pretty robust way of validating new models as they come in. We use LLM as a judge, and so we have an automated way of validating these new models, and so we can work with you on which model is best for you. But it is your choice. It's customer choice of what model you want to use. And as the models keep changing, one day one model is better, the next day the other model is better, so you can also swap them out pretty easily. And then, as I said, you can use whatever interface you want. This is, again, the openness of the platform. And using our APIs, not only are customers using APIs, other third parties are also integrating in our APIs to integrate Glean into their products. Like we announced pretty recently, Zoom AI is integrating with Glean, and Cisco and Miro and DataStax, a bunch of third parties, so that if you're a Glean customer, you can get the power of Glean through other SaaS apps. Remember that slide before? You don't want every SaaS app integrating with everyone. Well, the SaaS apps are going to be integrating with Glean if you're a Glean customer. So we are an enterprise AI platform, and that is a shift in the last 6 months or so, that we're not just a product, but we are a platform. So what was the evolution? So Glean started in 2019 as enterprise search. Arvind Jain, the CEO and co-founder, he came from Rubrik, where he was also the co-founder at Rubrik. And he said as the engineering team grew, they were slowing down. And he was really frustrated. He has very little patience. And so he was like, why is this taking so long to find information? And he did surveys, and this was like the thing that came back. And he went and he tried every solution out there for enterprise search, and they were all really bad. And he was one of the first search infrastructure engineers at Google. And he's like, I know how to build search. Why have people not built a good search? And so that's how Glean started. So just purely as enterprise search. Then GPT-3 came out, and Glean launched a chat interface on top of search. So everybody's talking about RAG. RAG is just retrieval, which is just search. Like the core of it is search. If you don't have a good search engine, you're not going to have good results. So Glean has spent the last 5 years building a search engine and building enterprise search to understand how to do this in an enterprise when when the results had been very poor from everyone else before. So added the chat interface so that you get a query in, you translate that into a search query, you run the RAG, you get the snippets back, and then you run the LLM to generate the answer. And then, as I was saying, then build a platform on top of that so that you all can do a lot more. And this is very customer driven. We're seeing our customers want to do more and more with your enterprise data, so we want to enable that. So whatever you want to build on your enterprise data, you should be able to do that with Glean. So where is the secret sauce of Glean? It's in this middle box. It's in the platform. So first of all, I talked about permissions. I think somebody over here said trust was one of the most important things. It is. Like, we need to make sure we get it right. Every SaaS app has a different permissioning model. And so how do you understand all those different permission models? When I first came to Glean, I met with one of the CIOs of a customer of ours who was a customer at one company, went to another company, brought Glean to the other customer. He's a real strong fan. And he said, the first time I met Arvind Jain, he came in and said, I'm getting the permissions right. And a lot of other companies that he would meet with says, oh, we're going to do like the stuff on top, and we'll figure out the permissions later. But the permissions is the hardest part. And if you don't get it right, you don't have a product. We can't show information to somebody that they shouldn't. Like, if you're searching for when is the next riff, you don't want your average employee to find that document. You want to make sure that the permissions are right. But now you say, I'm sure all of you are sitting there saying, yeah, but my company doesn't really do their permissions right. So how many people have confidence that every document has the right permissions on it? No, I didn't think so. So that's one of the first things that we get is we actually had a very large customer turn on Glean and be like, oh my God, you can find all the stuff you're not supposed to find. Immediately turned it off. And again, this is what we've been doing for 5 years. So we've honed this. So we have an AI governance layer. We will let you launch this in dark mode with a small set of admins to see what you're getting back and what you're not. And we will enable you to put in rules. So you can red list and green list any documents that are HR documents that fit these descriptions. Never, no matter what the permissions are, ever make them accessible to all employees. So this is what our AI governance, we have a pretty robust AI governance layer that we've been working with for years before the AI trends, just with enterprise search, to make sure that the right information is not, that the wrong information is not getting to people that it shouldn't. And we've been, even more recently, people keep coming back with some edge cases that we make sure that we're getting right. So that layer in that trust and security and governance is, we take very seriously, and we put a lot of effort behind that. AI-powered search. We are hybrid search. We do part keyword IR-based search and part semantic search. We've been using vector embeddings since 2019 because that's what Google Search did, using vector embeddings, using a semantic layer. We fine-tune an embeddings model for your enterprise so we understand the content of your enterprise, so we understand how to rank those results. And we learn, of course, from your enterprise. Then on top, I talked about how we can use any model that you want to use for your engine, and then you can build apps and prompts on top. You were talking earlier about not everybody knows how to write prompts. So when we launched Glean, got a box, nobody knows what to do with that box. And what we saw with Glean is that when people launched the assistant, sometimes people weren't using it, but once they started using it, retention was really high. But how do we get them over that hump of, I'm not sure what to do with this box? And what we found is that a small percentage of people really understood how to do it, but we weren't enabling in the product. You talked about in the panel, how do we train more people? How do you get people in your organization to understand how to use these AI tools? But it's not just you training. We in the product need to make this better and easier. So we, about 2 months ago, launched prompt building and saving and sharing. So you can now, we have a prompt library. So out of the box, you get a prompt library which has certain prompts that we've tested for different lines of business. So for marketing, sales, engineering. And then we will work with your organization to create prompts that are specific for your organization. But the real strength comes in that when you open Glean, you will see the prompts that your peers are using. So not just prompts that are in your organization in general, but because we understand your organization. We understand who you report to, who reports to you, who your peers are. And this is part of why search works. I missed that one. On our search, a lot of it is personalization. So going back to my onboarding example, since we know who's in your team, we know what onboarding documents the people in your team have written and have looked at, and we will rank those higher and we will return those to you. And that's the same thing we do with the prompts. So if you're an engineer and people in your engineering team are using prompts for PR reviews, you're gonna get that as a suggestion. In Zero Suggest, you're gonna see that prompt. And so we wrote a prompt in Glean. Little sidetrack, we did a promptathon, so this was really fun. Before we launched our prompt saving, we had the idea, instead of, it's like modeled like a hackathon, but it was a promptathon, because we said, we gotta launch with some like prompts out of the box. How do we do this? And we weren't getting, like the same thing that you're like, we're an AI company, and we weren't getting people to engage. We're like, our customers are having the same issue. What do we do? So we did this promptathon where we said, here's a day, you all have to say, you sales engineer, marketing, social marketing, whatever your job is, think about what you do and write a prompt for it. But one of the keys that we did is we said we put an engineer or a product manager in every team for the promptathon. Again, you talked about before, like people outside of engineering who don't understand the technology, don't understand what it can and can't do. And that was something that really changed the results of the promptathon. Because then somebody from finance was sitting there. We had one of the people in finance wrote a prompt to automate the creation of the spreadsheet for bonus calculations for the sales team. Like, think about how much time that is going to save them. And they never would have been able to do it without an engineer saying, here, this is something cool that you could do. So we came out with a couple hundred prompts that people are using, and now we use that as a template of something we do with our customers. And we do these promptathons with our customers. But this was very eye-opening for us to see this process. So my prompt that I wrote in the promptathon was a feature status update, so that I could see what is the status of a feature, and not just look at our launch calendar, but look at the Slack messages to see, is there anybody saying, oh my God, there's an issue, this might not launch on time. and looking at the latest comments in the Google Docs to see what is the status. And I'm very proud that that is one of the most used prompts now in the organization. But these are like, I probably wouldn't have sat down to do it if it wasn't like, okay, focus time. So anything that you want people to learn how to do, you have to give them the time and the kind of the urging and the guardrails to figure out how to do that. Okay, that was a very long segue, but I really heard what you were saying earlier about helping people get over the hump. With the technology that we have in place, there's so much more that we can be doing. So we launched prompts. We're going to be launching soon more advanced prompts, which are more agentic workflows. They're in beta with some of our customers, which is multiple calls to the LLMs and taking action. And that just opens up a whole nother world of what you can do. And again, we'll have APIs to this as well, so you can build on top of that if you're building specific workflows. So this is the slide that really explains our full Workeye AI platform. Going a little bit in depth into the security points, this is your data, and you may not want it to leave your cloud. So we have built an architecture where it's single tenant, whether it's us hosting or you hosting, and it's about 50-50 of our customers use our SaaS offering. Some actually large customers like, I don't want to deal with the hosting, you do it. Which surprised me because I thought they'd be more like, no, we have to do it. But then the other half, it's in, whether it's your AWS project, your GCP project, we host it in your project so the data does not leave your cloud. And this is a really key thing and of making sure that it's going to be safe and secure and that you can control it. So that's one on the data. I talked about permissions aware so that there's no leakage of permissions and that we work with you to make sure that you've tested it and your organization has the permissions right. A lot of people talk about security through obscurity is like, oh, you're never going to find this document because it was hidden somewhere. We had another customer, their security team, I kid you not, had JIRAs about vulnerabilities that were not locked down with the right permissions. And once Glean was implemented, anyone could find the details of every security vulnerability for them. And they didn't even know this until they had a red team exercise and somebody said, I'm going to see what I can find with Glean. And then they freaked out. So again, they didn't blame us. It's like actually, you guys are doing a really good job at finding this information, but we now are, helping them fix this. And then we do a lot of our own, obviously, testing and red teaming, et cetera, and work with other security vendors of your choice if you have somebody you want us to take a look at and partner with. Trusted by the world's leading organizations. Some of you are here. We get a lot of love for the product. Before I joined Glean, I was just telling Mark, I was actually on the deal. Did a little stint in a VC, and I was on the deal team for the investment in Glean in the Series D. And one of the reasons it made me join is because I started doing customer calls, and the customer calls were all like, I can't imagine living without this product now. Because it's like, it solves a real problem. It didn't start with, here, I have some AI technology, I'm going to figure out what I can do with it. It's like a real problem that now is being solved by Glean, and now then we can take that and then solve new problems with the advent of the LLMs. People use it, as I said, once they get over the hump and understand what the assistant can do, or even just straight up search. We're seeing about 5 queries a day, and we have a lot of ROI studies. We have doing studies with our customers to say, like, resolving, for instance, like incident resolution time, because you can find information so much faster. You can build agents that find the information, resolving tickets faster, et cetera. So we've got studies on that. And then this is Glean Apps. So we launched Glean Apps, I think it was about 6 months ago, and first in beta with our customers, and we're seeing people use them for all kinds of things. So like customer support agents of, here's the canonical reference that you should be looking at, here's when it should trigger, here's the prompt. So these are specialized for special use cases. So it's not the generic assistant, it's a Glean app for customer support or for the engineering team or for like a deal desk. You go to this specific app. We will also, if you do a query in the generic Glean chat, then we will route it to the app if it meets the triggering conditions. So a number of specialized apps that we are building. This has been exciting to see. As a product person, you always like building a platform and then seeing your customers do things that you didn't think of. And you're like, oh, that's really cool. So we're just beginning. We as technologists have not figured out everything we can do with AI. But the platform enables you to do so much. I was talking to a customer the other day who said we gave them access to our advanced prompts in the beta, and he's like, I was on a 5-hour plane ride and I just started hacking to see what I could do. And he's like, it was awesome. And then he made Loom videos and sent us to the product team of the prompts that he had created because he was so excited. He's like, this is what I need. This is how I can automate so much more of what I can do. So if you see on the axis going up and down, it's like you can get company level, like here are my HR policies. You can have department level. You can say here are prompts that we should use for product management. Our product team built a specialized app to read all the sales calls. We use Gong to ingest all the sales calls and then analyze them, look at what were the top requested features and put them in a spreadsheet and send them out to the product team, for example. These are the things that, and it's not hard. You need a little bit of expertise to know exactly how to prompt it right, which goes back to not everybody's really good at prompting. But those are the departmental use cases and personal use cases. What are my top priorities? What are my daily tasks? I think my most common personal prompt is help me prepare for a customer meeting. When was the last time they had an incident, or what were their feature requests? And because it reads everything, it'll read the Gong calls, the Zendesk tickets, the Jira tickets, then I get a full, so I don't have to bother the CSMs anymore. I can prep myself. And there's just so much more that we can do here. So this is we're just getting started. As the models get better, Glean gets better. Because as the models get smarter, there's more we can do with the prompts and more we can do with the context of your organization. So I'm going to leave you with 3 parting thoughts, and then I'll open it up. I think I have some time for some questions. People are like, do I wait? Do I start? I think there was a question earlier, you don't want to make a mistake. If you don't start, your competitors will. And so you have to be really careful there, because you start, and even if you pick the wrong tool, let's say you don't pick Glean, then you can always switch later, but you're going to learn. You're going to learn what doesn't work, because you're not going to learn by just sitting and talking to companies. You got to get your hands in it, and you got to be playing with it. You all should be doing at least a couple queries a day, whatever tool you're using, whatever you're doing, because you're not going to really understand the power of what this can and can't do without getting your personal hands in it. I think that's a really important thing. And I also see that the leaders in organizations drive the culture. So if you let's say you use some Gen AI tool to craft a message to your organization, say, written by Gen AI tool. And then people are like, oh, it's okay to use a Gen AI tool to write my comms. So you're setting up the standard. And these things make an impact on your organization. So 2, you want a centralized platform because it just makes sense. Think of everything that you do. You don't want a lot of point solutions because it just doesn't scale. And most of this stuff, it's going to be, the power is going to be compounded by having a centralized platform. And make sure that it's for everyone. Everyone can benefit, whether you're an engineer, in marketing, in customer support, and a lot of the benefits are the same across. Some of them are unique to, you want, for customer support, we recently launched called Glean Assist that embeds into Zendesk or Sales Cloud and will help you build a specialized flow for customer support. And we're going to be doing more of that, and some organizations are doing it themselves. But it's good to make sure that whatever you do works across your organization, because everybody can be more productive with AI. So that's the end of my talk. Questions?
Questions that we're debating with internally. Again, internal searches. It's really hard right now. I don't know which bank to go
Where are you from?
JP Morgan Chase. So the debate we have internally is like a Kendra search engine versus using LLM and going straight to that. How would you compare Glean versus maybe more traditional?
So Glean does both because we are a traditional search engine. We will ingest and analyze and we will index all of your content, and you can find that content and you can use an LLM to have a chat interface. So an employee can choose. I would say the strength of Glean is that our search is so much better. So a lot of the traditional enterprise searches weren't using AI. So we were using AI, like the BERT models from Google, the vector embeddings, since the beginning. So we have always been an AI search engine doing semantic search, and really it is why our search is better. We have activity data, we can see what people are looking at, we can see what's relevant for you, and that is really powerful. So I think we have both, and then we integrated with the LLM so you can have a generative answer as well. I think I had a meeting with you guys. Yes.
So the admin signs you up, and even for my personal documents?
So yes. So basically we're admin level. It's not a user level permission. It's admin level. So your IT admin will give authorization across, but they can't see your personal documents. Obviously it's your work documents that are personal to you. So not your like Gmail ones, but they will, we get the admin level approval and then we ingest those, but we adhere to the permissions. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thanks.
So pricing strategy, the question, we are per user pricing. We are better in every way. Yeah, it's not exactly comparable, but we can look and work with you in your organization. So, I think you had a question back there.
I've talked to a couple companies recently that are talking about having agents, and they all refer to, rather than using LLMs, that they're using small language models that are customized. Can you kind of talk about the difference and why I might be interested in one or the other?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there's, so one of the things that in agents is taking action. And so one of the things that we do, I didn't really touch on that much. I said we take action, but we have an API where you can use open API and you can customize any action you want to take. We are finding that the LLMs, once you do that work to define the agents, we also have some built-in ones that are actions that we have created, that we've been testing that, and we've been seeing that those actually work quite well. But there are some companies that are very specialized for, let's say, like financial services, a very specialized niche agent that might want a fine-tuned LLM, but we're working with them, so they use our APIs to get the context of the organization, and then they might build a fine-tuned LLM and work with us to create their own. So we are seeing some combination of that. In our testing, we have found that for the use cases that we've been looking at, the LLMs actually are really good for the cases that we've seen. But as I said, some companies are doing very specific. We haven't seen other companies that really have better results. But happy to work with you on some of your specific use cases.
Thank you for that. Quick question, you were talking about the security team and their documents were exposed. Now what? I mean, how do you set the right access to it? Do you have some sort of an automation through the Glean itself?
Yes.
Is like set this kind of a automation, because that's the reality for very large organization.
So we have a DLP-like interface where you can set rules and say these are the rules of what should not be accessible no matter what the permissions are. And so we'll work, like, so now we're working, we worked with that company to say, okay, here are the things that should be locked down. And then we have the ability to do it on an ongoing real-time basis as well. So we always have done it up front, worked with IT teams to say, here's the things to your DLP that you should have. It's not like DLP in the traditional sense, it's more DLP for AI, so we're calling it AI governance. And then we will scan on a real-time basis to say, does everything adhere to the rules that we put in? And then if you find something else that's outside of that, then we just adjust the rules.
So I thought it was interesting, and just correct me if I heard this right, but let's, I think there's a paradigm shift in terms of how enterprises manage information and access to information, because in a world where you had millions of rabbit holes with data and documents stored in those rabbit holes across the enterprise, it wasn't a human capability to go and look in all the rabbit holes and find all the data, right? And what you've got now is you're flooding the rabbit holes, surfacing everything. I know I'm using an extended metaphor, but now everything is surfaced, right? And if I recall what you said, I think you said that you have the ability to then go in and look at this surfaced information and determine whether it's accessible or not by any given individual. So you have a model for that. Does that then become its own security risk if it's compromised?
So this is why, so yes, I mean, you want to make sure that it's highly secure, and this is why serving it in your cloud is so important. And this is why a lot of the CISOs say we want full control and we want the indexed information in our cloud. So, I mean, any compromise, I worked on Slack, is like super important that that data is secure. Anytime you have access to data, it has to be secure. So we take security very, very seriously. So yeah, you want to make sure that anything that you do with Glean, that it is secure. So one is the permissions, making sure that you're not going to see the information that you shouldn't see. And the other is making sure that we're very clamped down from a security perspective. Internally, our team is like hates the security team because they don't let them use like any software because they're very so clear of like, we just can't, no compromises, no risks. So yes. Last thing I should say, if you have any questions, I'm just Tamar, Tamar at glean.com. So you can follow up with me and I will route you to the right person, but you can feel free to follow up with me at tamar@glean.com. So I think I'm just about at time. So thank you very much.